Hi, I'm Elaine Murphy from True Blue BBQ in Kingston, Massachusetts. Today I'm going to show you how to prep a rack of baby back ribs. We'll go through some of those steps right up until what to look for when the product is actually done. Baby back ribs, typically at the store, Costco's, BJ's, any of the large markets, come cryovac 3 to a pack. The brand is not particularly important. They're all pretty much the same. Some hints to look for is because they're baby back, there's really very little fat in them. So typically, if I were to buy just a 3-pack like this, I look for the highest weight I can find. It typically translates to a nice meaty rack of baby back ribs. So, scissors I find are the best tool. Cut the pack open. We can let some of that drain right into the wrapper. What we have to do with the baby back ribs is on the bone side, there's a membrane, and that needs to be removed. And the easiest way, take scissors, knife will do, but I actually prefer scissors, and I start right in the middle. You just lift the tip of the scissors under that membrane, enough for your fingertips to go in, pull through, and then bring it out to each side. And that's it. If you don't remove this, both the rub and the smoke don't really permeate through the back of the bone. And it also creates a little bit of tough texture on the back that is not particularly pleasant to bite into. And that's it for prepping. Next we will apply the rub. So now we're going to apply the rub. I use this just because I have such vast quantities that I go through, and it's an easy way to apply. You could just keep some in a bowl and sprinkle it over, or use this. So, liberal application. This is the fat end. You'll see that there's a wide end and then a narrow bone end, and you want to make sure you get that end covered. Flip it over. Make sure you get along the exposed bones. And as you can see, I'm not really caking this on. I do not pat the ribs dry. And I also don't rub it. I think that starts to take the rub off. That's it for applying the rub. Pretty simple. And the next step is we will go to the smoker. For a smoker this size, I use regular logs. And that's not going to work for the homeowner, but it's more the type of wood. I prefer local hardwood. Oak works beautifully. It imparts a clean smoke flavor, and you can find wood, oak chunks at the home improvement stores. If you do want to impart other wood flavors, I really don't recommend mesquite and hickory for northerners. They're both very strong flavors. Not so much hickory, definitely mesquite. If you're dying to experiment with that a little bit, I would burn some of it without any meat and see what that flavor and that smoke smells like to you, and I think that will help you. For New Englanders, we have apple, we have pear, even cherry. All of those are beautiful and work with everything from ribs, turkey, fish, all of that. This is a great little model for people to start. You'll see it at all the home improvement stores. This has what's called the offset firebox. The firebox is lower than where the meat will actually smoke. This can take the small chips. If you use those, you'll have to refuel the fire more frequently. Or this is large enough to actually take the large chunks of hardwood that you can buy also at the home improvement stores. This in a small smoker, this is where it will be the hottest because that is where your fire is. This is a rib rack. Same thing, every store carries these. When you place the ribs in the smoker on the rack, the fat end that I mentioned earlier, I always keep the fat end closest to the heat source. It can actually take some of the heat and will cook more evenly, the fatter and the thinner end. So right there is one. Same thing, fat end. Fat end towards the heat. For a smoker this size, even though I could fit 2 more racks of ribs in here, I would never do that. You're just going to crowd the meat too much, and you want that smoke to actually circulate around there and cook the product. One of the trickiest things is, once this is in, is maintaining the correct, not only temperature, but smoke also. This does have a thermometer. Ideal smoking temperatures are, say, 200 to 225. As you can see in the smoker behind me, you don't see any plumes of smoke coming out. That's considered a clean smoke. Once your fire is going, you wait until you get some nice coals and there's no billows of gray or black smoke. You want what's considered a clean smoke, and that's tricky to maintain because you have to sort of constantly fuel these small boxes, but it's certainly something you can do. And that is the #1 thing to watch for. You do not want dark gray or green smoke coming out during the process. If the fire does tend to go out or start to, you're low on fuel, don't go straight into panic mode. Build your fire back up slowly. The meat can stay at a lower temperature for short times without anybody becoming ill from that product. If it does start to get too smoky, or at the end of finishing time, you may have to use some tin foil, especially in a smaller enclosed smoker like this. And what I would recommend is taking foil, and you can now start to use this as a little bit of a shield. Start by maybe just on the fatter end if it looks like it's drying up or becoming too cooked, to also laying a small piece of foil over. For something like this, baby back ribs, maintaining at around a 200, 220 temp, I'm going to say anywhere from 4 to 5 hours. This one is starting to show some of the end bones. The meat has actually pulled back from that a little bit. You can see in this one, the meat has pulled back and these bones are showing. That's a good indication. Not always necessary depending on how meaty the rack of ribs is. The next thing you can always do, sort of the flop test, and there we go. These ribs are breaking apart right now. And at this point, for this rack of ribs, I would mop it, and I'm sure everybody has heard that term. That will help the rib absorb a little bit of moisture back in it, and then let this rest. I don't mop it while it's cooking. You don't want to wash that rub off as it's smoking. Give it a while. Maybe towards the end, if you think that meat is starting to look dry, you've already applied a little bit of a foil to block off some of the heat, then you can start applying some moisture. And by then, especially at a stage like this, that rub is well adhered and cooked in. And those are some smoking tips, and I hope you try it at home. Thank you.